So I'm not sure if I could ever become a poker pro. Maybe at 42 myself. I don't know. But
42 is a good age to start.
And have you done all your sessions with Jamie?
Yeah, they're all done now.
Yeah. And would you do that again? You'd recommend that to people, or you would do it another set?
Well, Jamie's amazing.
Yeah.
But what happened, because we've quickly figured out that we have, probably he thought he would have a coaching level up here, but we dragged it down a bit because he started trying to get. And what he did is basically, so I showed him my session, or like some hands, and he goes, so why are you raising that? And then it's such an old question, and I know like I should be like very easily explain why and how much. Yeah, exactly, but why? And so and that's just like every time it trips me. It's like, well, just raise that, you know. It's like and then I start having these stupid moments where I was like, why am I even bothering? And then Jamie came and I was like, no, hang on. You're a good poker player. You just have to maybe like sort a few things out and straighten them out, and that's fine. Don't put yourself down.
Yeah, no, and you have to be thick-skinned, you know, and particularly with a coach, because a coach's methodology might be to just keep like antagonising your points until you realise that he's making a good point or that something wrong there.
I think it's actually a feature of most successful poker players is that they tend to be very, very self-critical anyway. So, like, I think if most even very successful poker players, if you ask them like about their game, they'll tell you, "Oh, I'm not very good at this, and I don't think I'm good at this." Because that's actually very important to the process of becoming better. That you accept that you're not good at certain things, and that you continually be on the lookout for things that maybe you think you're not doing. So you get blind checks with your coach or your friends.
Exactly, and like I guess like in the absence of being coached, we both do a bit of coaching, but in the absence of being coached ourselves, which I'm sure we could do it, I'm sure if we did pay for a session with someone very good, it would be beneficial. But I guess we supplement or we give ourselves a similar experience of that by creating a kind of a brain trust of, I guess there's probably been as many as 12 people in it over the years, probably about 8 or 9 at the moment, where you can post a hand to Skype and go, and then like maybe leave the gap, like there you go, question mark, when actually your action did take place, because you want to be kind of honest and see what all the guys would do without knowing outcomes, because you're always trying to hide the outcomes because they're not important. And you know, there's great guys in our collective, Dara Davey, Jason Tompkins, Dan Wilson, Pork O'Neill, like the list goes on, and these are like the best players in Ireland. So it's amazing to have that facility where you can go, I genuinely don't know if I messed up here. What do you think, guys?
Even now, like you did a live stream commentary a while back with Phil Baker, and one of the interesting points Phil made was that his perception of us as outsiders was that when we go to a tournament and then there's a break and we get together, what we talk about immediately is hands. We all have like 1 or 2 hands that we're not sure about, so we run it by everybody, and you know, basically line check. So we're continually checking ourselves as we go, which is actually vital. So, and you would think, like, having played for almost 10 years and played 30 million hands or whatever it is at this stage, that we would have all that stuff worked out. But we're still going like, I'm not sure I played this spot right. What do you think?
A lot of the time, those hands are hands you'd never mention in an online session, because it would be fairly standard. But because live throws in these other dimensions, you can go, oh, my villain was that guy, you know him. Have I got the right sense of what he's capable of? Because this is what I did. Because I think live is where you diverge from game theory optimal type of maybe very kind of strict mathematical approaches to the game. That's where I think even the good maths guys go, well, you know what, actually the way to beat these games harder is to diverge, because these guys are diverging so much.
Sometimes you just look at the guy and you know he's at the very top of his range. He looks so comfortable, and you have a hand you would never fold online, but it's like, no, this hand is not good here, and you can make a fold. And sometimes you'll do the opposite. You'll call down very, very light, because you just know the guy looks exactly the same as he did in that other hand where he was bluffing. So
Well, in those coachings with Jamie, were basically the 2 things that we figured out is what I have to work on is bet sizes and ranges, and so that's fine. It's like we just figured out 2 weaknesses where I have to work on, and that's a cool thing. So that's something to. And
they're the building blocks of your game, because if you can get your ranges nailed down, and then you can get your, like, you know, flop bets, you know, and turn bet sizings on different board textures nailed down. Like, that is so much of the game these days.
And they go hand in hand. Like, if you think of the way the game has evolved over the last 10 years, like back when I started, everybody was 3xing pretty much.
Mm.
And then now most people are, the bet sizing has gotten much smaller, and that changes the ranges that you should play. Like when you're 3xing, you should be playing tighter. But then because you're charging more on people to play against you. But when you're betting a smaller amount and you're trying to steal more blinds and you're playing a wider range of hands, now you have to bring your bet size down.
Yeah.
And you even see the bet sizing increasing now slightly. And I've seen too, even just in the modern paradigm in the last year, you see people going back to 2.1 when they used to be 2, because I think for a couple of reasons. One, because the culture of big blind defending has, like the maths has basically been run to show that the big blind should be calling with a significantly wide range now. And obviously a big part of progressing to a tournament is chipping up without anyone fighting back.
Yeah.
So to give yourself that little bit of an extra chance and to define his range more, because actually that was one of the toughest parts of it, is that you open from mid position, big blind defend, you're like, geez, you can have half the deck here. So it's actually hard to know what board it is. So if you like 2.15 it or something like that instead now, which I think a lot of people are doing, especially with bigger antes in the game, now the guy is at least defining his range a little tighter.
You're forcing him to play a tighter range, yeah. Like I think a reason why the min was so successful initially is that people can adjust to it.
No.
Like when you're playing against a 3x, like people were saying, you know, when you have this stack size in the big blind, you can't flat. You have to either shove over the raise or you fold. Those are the only two options, which might be correct when somebody's 3xing and you've got 15 big
because they're leveraging your stack now, yeah.
Yeah, and then like people started minning, and the reason I started minning was I was playing, my primary game at that time was 45 hands on full tilt, and I was playing against a lot of regulars, but I noticed that they would fold their blinds. They fold exactly the same hands whether I minned or 3x'd. It made no difference. They either had a hand that they thought they were supposed to play for the blinds or to raise, or they folded.
And also those games had no antes, I think.
And those games had no antes. So like people just didn't realise that flatting was an option back then. Now that people do realise that flatting is an option, and they flat far wider. In fact, people probably flat most of their range in the blinds now. And because you're playing against a wide range, that makes it more difficult. So I think the sizing has gotten bigger again. I'm still not convinced it's correct. I think part of the reason people are doing that is they think, well, everybody now has their ranges correct against the 2x.
Let's now force them to do something that they might make a mistake on.
Yeah, like even for us, like if somebody does something unorthodox at the table, that's the toughest part. Like if somebody suddenly starts 5x and you're going, okay, what range am I supposed to play with against a 5x? So I think some guys are doing that just to mix it up essentially.
Yeah, and a good friend of mine, Nick Carrillo, said to me recently, and he was struggling in the game, and you know he's just found it, you know, like the game's getting tougher, like we all are. And he said one of the big things was everyone's defending now, whatever. And one of the things he now does is he's really like kind of focused whenever, as he's about to open, and he generally open or just over min raise as well. He looks at the big blind, and the big blind's got like 9 bigs or 8 bigs. Now rather than, and he's got a hand that he's going to have to call off it, so he's not just like opening air in that spot. He's now 2.5ing or 2.6ing into that stack because he knows he's actually almost like creating a negative situation for himself by minning, because the guy's always going to get the price. And with Nick's entire range in that situation, if the guy just flops a pair and goes with it, he's actually exploiting Nick's opening ranges and tendency to c-bet maybe on most boards, because there'll be so much in there now. So he's looking for those spots where a guy's actually quite shallow and knows that guy's looking to flat and go with any equity he can find. And now he's making it bigger so that he's like fighting back against that tendency, if you like, which I think is smart. But again, you might be right, it might actually be correct. It might just be more that you should be more balanced with c-betting tendencies, and it should be other things that you should be doing. But I guess in his mind, the point of it is, let's do something that the guys can't do what they're used to doing these days.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly, because I've done a lot of off-table work with some of the software tools like Golden Resources Calculator and ICMizer to analyse those situations now where effective stacks are 20 big blinds or less, and experimented with different sizings. And that's led me to be convinced that in most situations the min open is still the optimal open. But I think because people are used to playing against the min open and they're playing almost correctly now, that if you diverge from that and you can get people making even worse, making bigger mistakes with their range, then possibly you're making more because of that.
What do you make of this kind of conversation? Like, I know we've drifted into sort of slightly nerdy strategy stuff now, but like when you hear that, are you thinking, Like, are you picking up going, okay, I'll start doing that, or that's interesting? Or is it more kind of like, okay, well, that seems to be like what those guys are doing at that state level, and maybe you're trying to just rebuild your game or something?
Yeah, no, at first it all makes sense, but that's one of the reasons why I took the coaching now from Jamie, because I felt like the game had changed so much from when I was playing more on Poker Stars and so on. So it's like I feel like I need somebody to reset everything, and it's from obviously I can't forget what I've learned like back then, but it's quite hard to get into the new thinking. But it was very important that I did that, because I think I would have gone to Malta, I would have had no idea that it's now normal to min race. That was like one of those moments. That was an aha moment with Jamie. That's okay. That's what people do now. So definitely, and then so those kind of thoughts I have a lot. So does the 2.15x now actually change it? You know, but it all makes sense. Like all of a sudden they think it's not just a click, basically live or online, but somebody put a bit of thought in. So now I have to consider what I have here.
Yeah.
So I can follow all that and it's all fine, but I have to do it more to get into these things. To
internalize it so that you know the correct thing to do. Yeah. And like I know you've been. You mentioned you use your holidays for poker, and you've been to Vegas 7 times. Like, how do you find the whole Vegas experience?
I love it. I could just stay.
You could just you can live there forever.
I could just do that, because I thought after, because I did in 2012 I went for a month, and I said I try and live the life of a poker pro for 1 month. So I did like every day I played at least 8 hours of poker, and so it was in total the month was like 243 hours of poker. I all tracked it, all my sessions tracked and everything.
A lot.
That's hard
work.
That was a lot of poker, and I thought after that month, I actually hoped that after that month I was all like pokered out, had it off my system. I was like, no, it's not.
Really?
It's not done. And
well, then it probably is what you should be doing.
That's a really good sign, because most of the people that I know who say they want to be a pro and then they do that, they come up and like, oh no, I can't do that. It's just
for me it was like, no, I could just go back and do exactly that, because I felt like I was just warming up. It's like now I got into the ride, because then I started like getting to know the poker room guys, so I could just give a call and just like, do you have a table or do you have a seat free for me? And so I got into this whole routine. I was like, oh, now I have to stop. But I just I want to keep going.
And were you making money like that you could have?
No, actually I broke even on the trip, which is not.
So it's a lot of work. Yeah, no, you're not losing and you're paying rates, so you were probably beating the game to some extent.
So I had in total I had like $700 minus.
Okay.
So just looking at like, because I paid like drinks with the money as well.
Sure.
Like, so I was like, okay, it's basically break even over a month. But obviously I had to pay the flights and hotels and everything, so it cost me all money. But just knowing that I felt comfortable doing what I was doing.
Yeah. Well, but there's even like not leaking. You know, like as you say, $700 is negligible. It's probably works out as like something tiny percentage-wise per hand. It's probably one pot that could have gone your way would have made a difference. But just not losing is very important, because at least by not losing, you're stable. You know, there's a stabilizing kind of aspect to that. Whereas people who are leaking money all the time and they're trying to get better, but they have to play and lose to get the practice to get better, it's a much tougher job from that position.
And the thing is, I have a friend in Vegas who does that. He just plays the small stakes, the 1, 2, 1, 3 games, and he makes a living with it. And he has figured all this out for himself. He knows who to call, and then he gets calls from poker and say, hey,
soft game here,
come over. Yeah. And he has a bike, like a motorbike, and he just like goes there, plays, and once he doubled or tripled up, moves on, next one. Yeah. And he keeps doing that, and he keeps making money. And I was like, this is awesome. And he actually told me, you can do this. And he invited me over to just do the same thing, and we just grind the Vegas trip. And I was like, I could do it.
There you go.
Yeah.
But it's the thing, like, you know, being in this like very safe little world that I am right now, I'm in right now. It's so difficult to make a decision to take that step. So I'm always thinking about there should be this one big score that I have to make it possible for me to take a step into the unknown.
Yeah, and like, to be honest, like the way I started, I needed to convince myself first that I could make money regularly rather than just one big score. Because as great as one big score is, like, we both know a lot of guys who had that one big score and then, you know, they've been a pro for a year, but that's basically them just losing that money gradually back and then going bust. So, like, you need to convince yourself that you can make money regularly from it, whether that's playing online, whether it's playing cash. And I think there is a difference. Like the cash players, they obviously have swings, but it's not the same as the tournament players. Tournament players have to deal with more variance and have to be, most of the time you play a tournament, you end up disappointed, because even if you come second in the tournament, you're disappointed that you didn't win. So unless you win a tournament or drop a tournament, you're probably not happy at the result of it. So you have to deal with all the psychological stuff of like bad experience, bad experience, bad experience. At the same time as you're managing your money and trying not to go broke. But the live pro work, which is not really one that I'm qualified to talk on because I've never been a live pro, but that's very different. They tend to have a more stable life. But like, I think another big difference between them and online players is they tend to be much more, they're better at social networking because they have to deal with players live all the time. They have to deal with, as you said, like floor guys, poker room managers and so on. And I think that would be one of your strengths. You are a very good networker. So,
and the art of the hustle is nearly kind of in there a bit with those guys too, because a lot of it is about getting yourself into the right games, because a lot of it is going to be, there's these 3 weaker players, they're businessmen or they're well-off people, and they come into the game once in a while, and you want to be in those games, and you're doing well will rely upon having kind of game selected really well. Like game selection for us is try and play the right kinds of tournaments, but we're playing 50 tournaments a night, so you'll be in some that weren't as good, but overall it'll be okay. Whereas if you're sitting there at one table and all your decisions are at that table, you really want to be in a good game.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing in Vegas is obviously because there's so much going on. And So once you double, because that's the thing, it's just simple short stack strategy, right? So you sit down with a minimum double up, triple up, and one, and there's always a different.
You can jump into another game and that's just as good 20 minutes after.
That's the beauty of it. So it's definitely something for me to aspire, but the problem is I'm not sure when, how, and I don't have money in the background, so it's like I would have to have this one big score. So now I just keep playing those events and hope that someday I just win one. So that's the plan. But you guys have to go to your.
No, we're not.
Right?
I think we're back at 4.
You probably have to go get some lunch.
I have to go to work.
You have to go to work.
You have to work. We knew there was something that one of us had to do.
Work, right? There was this thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure how to conclude this because I hope that you do the same thing in 42 more years along the line, basically.
And then I'll be like that guy who brought you into your first Fitz tournament.
Are you saying that Hicks is 84? I'm counting. No.
I hope for you guys that you're like still doing this in like ages and a few decades, and I hope I just.
Well, you've wished
that's a
for
very
me to have
horrible
the thing that I don't want to try and escape with. Actually, we could swap. You could become a pro, and I'll tag you in. Be fine.
You can be a video producer.
Yeah, that sounds your whole job is the job I want.
Well, we could swap. We could discuss that.
Yeah. And on the other side, we obviously wish you all luck and success in trying to transition to playing more poker.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to watch your Twitch channel at least.
Okay, and
that's probably not true.
Don't rip it apart. Okay, well, I think it was really nice. Thanks for being guest in my little
trialogue.
Trialogue.
Just before we go, just in case anyone's wondering where we are, that's the way Christin lives. That's
my messy bed.
That's her bed. So.
Right. Okay. I guess that's it. Thank you guys.
No worries.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.
Oh god, thanks guys.
Yeah, no worries.
That was 1 hour 17 minutes.
Wow.